The arrival. Zara Novak stood at the viewport of the interstellar shuttle, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The swirling, iridescent nebula outside slowly parted to reveal her destination. The Galactic Academy of Sciences. The massive space station hung suspended against the backdrop of stars, its gleaming spires and interconnected domes a testament to the advanced civilizations that had built it. As the first human ever accepted into this prestigious institution, Zara felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. She absently tugged at the sleeve of her environmental suit, a necessity for humans in the station's alien atmosphere. The past few months had been a whirlwind of preparations, briefings, and farewells. Now, standing on the precipice of this new adventure, she wondered if she was truly ready. The shuttle docked with a gentle thud, and Zara took a deep breath. "You've got this," she muttered to herself, shouldering her bag and joining the queue of alien students filing out of the craft. The docking bay was a cacophony of sounds, colors, and smells that assaulted Zara's senses. Beings of all shapes and sizes moved about with purpose, their appendages gesticulating in ways she couldn't begin to comprehend. A holographic display overhead cycled through various alien languages, eventually settling on English. "Welcome, new students. Please proceed to the orientation hall." Zara followed the crowd, her eyes wide as she took in the sights. Transparent tubes filled with shimmering liquid served as pathways for aquatic species. Anti-gravity platforms zipped overhead, carrying beings that seemed to be made of pure energy. She passed a group of tall, willowy creatures with iridescent skin who turned to stare at her with multifaceted eyes. "Excuse me," came a melodious voice from behind. Zara turned to see a being that looked like a cross between a bird and a tree. Its bark-like skin was covered in delicate, pastel-colored feathers, and instead of a mouth, it had a small beak. "Are you the human student?" Zara nodded, offering a small smile. "Yes, I'm Zara. Nice to meet you." The alien's feathers rippled in what Zara hoped was a friendly gesture. "I am Syleth. I've been assigned as your guide for the orientation. Please, follow me." As they walked, Syleth explained the basics of the Academy's layout and systems. Zara tried to absorb it all, but her attention kept wandering to the marvels around her. They passed a library where books floated in midair, their pages turning by themselves as students of various species absorbed the knowledge within. "This is remarkable," Zara breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. Syleth's beak clicked in what sounded like amusement. "The Galactic Academy of Sciences is the pinnacle of education in the known universe. Only the brightest minds from each species are invited to study here." They entered a vast auditorium filled with new students. Zara couldn't help but notice she was the only human present. As they found seats, she felt the weight of countless alien gazes upon her. A holographic figure materialized on the stage, a being composed of swirling gases contained within a vaguely humanoid shape. Its voice resonated throughout the chamber, somehow understandable to all present. "Greetings, new students. I am Headmaster Zephyrus. Welcome to the Galactic Academy of Sciences, where the greatest minds of the universe come together to push the boundaries of knowledge." The headmaster's speech continued, outlining the Academy's history, expectations, and the incredible opportunities that lay ahead. Zara listened intently, her mind racing with possibilities. As the orientation concluded, Syleth led Zara to her assigned living quarters. "Your roommate is already here," Syleth informed her as they approached the door. "Remember, mutual understanding and respect are key to a harmonious coexistence." The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a spacious room divided into two distinct environments. On one side, familiar Earth-like furnishings had been arranged for Zara's comfort. The other side, however, looked like a cross between a tropical rainforest and a coral reef. From within this alien habitat emerged a creature that made Zara's jaw drop. It had the upper body of a sleek, blue-skinned humanoid, but from the waist down, it possessed the tentacles of an octopus. Its large, expressive eyes blinked at Zara with obvious curiosity. "Greetings, Earth Dweller," the being said, its voice gurgling slightly. "I am Neokale of the cephaloid species. Welcome to our shared living space." Zara swallowed hard, reminding herself to keep an open mind. "Hello, Neokale. I'm Zara Novak. It's nice to meet you." As Silith bid them farewell, Zara and Neokale began the awkward dance of getting to know each other. They exchanged information about their respective homeworlds, academic interests, and personal hobbies. Zara learned that Neokale was studying xenobiology, with a focus on adapting to various planetary environments. "Your species fascinates me," Neokale admitted, gesturing with a tentacle. "How do you manage with only 2 legs and no natural defenses?" Zara chuckled. "We make do. Humans are pretty adaptable. What about you? How do you, get around on land?" Neokale demonstrated by using her tentacles to propel herself across the room in a fluid, undulating motion. "On my homeworld, we move seamlessly between land and sea. Here, I use a hydration field to keep my skin moist in the dry air." As they continued to chat, Zara felt some of her nervousness begin to dissipate. Despite their obvious differences, she and Neokale shared a common thirst for knowledge and a sense of adventure. Later that evening, as Zara lay in her bed staring at the unfamiliar constellations visible through the window, she reflected on the day's events. The enormity of what she had undertaken finally began to sink in. She was light years from home, surrounded by beings beyond her wildest imagination, about to embark on an educational journey that would push her to her limits. A mix of emotions washed over her: excitement, fear, wonder, and determination. She thought of her family back on Earth, of the hopes and expectations placed upon her shoulders. Zara knew that her performance here wouldn't just reflect on her as an individual, but on humanity as a whole. "I won't let them down," she whispered to herself, clenching her fists with resolve. The next morning arrived with a symphony of alien sounds. Zara woke to find Neokale already up, her tentacles manipulating multiple holographic displays simultaneously. "Good morning, Zara," Neokale greeted her. "I hope you're prepared for your first day of classes. The academic rigor here is intense." Zara nodded, trying to quell the butterflies in her stomach. "I'm as ready as I'll ever be. What's our first class?" "Quantum astromechanics with Professor Quasar," Neokale replied. "I've heard she's brilliant but extremely demanding." As they made their way to class, Zara couldn't help but feel a sense of awe at the diverse array of beings around her. Students of all shapes, sizes, and compositions hurried through the corridors, some flying, others slithering, and a few seemingly teleporting short distances. The lecture hall was a marvel of alien architecture, with seats that adjusted to accommodate the various physiologies of the students. Zara found herself seated next to a crystalline being that refracted light in mesmerizing patterns. Professor Quasar, a being of pure energy contained within a specially designed suit, began the lecture. Holographic equations and models sprang to life around the room, illustrating concepts that made Zara's head spin. As the professor posed a particularly challenging question to the class, Zara felt a moment of panic. The material was far beyond anything she had encountered on Earth. Just as she was about to sink into her seat in embarrassment, a memory flashed through her mind. A documentary she had watched about black holes and their effect on space-time. Taking a deep breath, Zara raised her hand. The professor's energy form flickered in what might have been surprise. "Yes, the human student. Your thoughts?" Zara stood, her voice shaky at first, but growing stronger as she spoke. She drew upon her knowledge of Earth physics, making connections and extrapolations that bridged the gap to the advanced concepts being discussed. As she finished her explanation, she realized the entire class had fallen silent. Professor Quasar's energy form pulsed brightly. "An interesting perspective, student Zara. While your understanding of the underlying principles is rudimentary by our standards, your ability to make intuitive leaps is noteworthy. Perhaps there is more to your species than we initially thought." As Zara sat down, She caught Nea Kalai giving her a tentacle up in approval. A warmth spread through her chest. She had taken her first step in proving that humans belonged at the Galactic Academy of Sciences. The rest of the day passed in a blur of new experiences and mental challenges. By the time Zara returned to her room that evening, her mind was buzzing with new knowledge and questions. She collapsed onto her bed, exhausted but exhilarated. Nea Kalai glided over, her tentacles curling in what Zara was beginning to recognize as a gesture of friendliness. "You did well today, Zora of Earth. Many were skeptical about a human joining our ranks, but you've shown promise." Zara smiled, touched by her roommate's words. "Thanks, Nea Kalai. I have so much to learn, but I'm determined to prove that humanity has something valuable to offer the galactic community." As she drifted off to sleep that night, Zura's dreams were filled with swirling nebulae, quantum equations, and the faces of her new alien classmates. She knew the journey ahead would be challenging, but she was ready to face it head-on. The human race had taken its first steps into a larger universe, and Zara Novak was leading the way. Adaptation and challenges. As weeks passed at the Galactic Academy of Sciences, Zara found herself settling into a routine that was anything but ordinary. Each day brought new wonders and challenges that pushed the boundaries of her understanding of the universe. Zara's mornings typically began with a quick jog around the station's artificial gravity ring. The exercise helped clear her mind and prepare her for the day ahead. It was during one of these morning runs that she noticed something peculiar. Despite the varied gravitational preferences of the different species, Zara found herself outpacing many of her alien classmates in the standardized gravity setting. "Fascinating," remarked Professor Tyleth, the Academy's cinephysiology instructor, as he observed Zora's performance during a physical assessment. "It seems that humans have a remarkable capacity for endurance and adaptability to varying gravitational conditions." Zara's physical capabilities became a topic of interest among the faculty and students alike. In practical exams that required manual dexterity or physical stamina, she consistently scored at the top of her class. This success, however, came with its own set of challenges. "I don't understand why they're making such a big deal out of it," Zara confided in Nea Kalai one evening as they studied in their shared quarters. "On Earth, I was just average in sports." Nea Kalai's tentacles rippled thoughtfully. "Perhaps it's not about being exceptional by human standards, but rather how your baseline abilities compare to other species. Many civilizations have evolved beyond the need for physical prowess, focusing instead on mental or technological advancement." This realization sparked an idea in Zora's mind. She began to incorporate her physical abilities into her academic projects, demonstrating how human adaptability and endurance could be applied to solve complex galactic problems. In her planetary exploration class, Zora proposed a method for surveying high-gravity worlds that combined human physiology with advanced exoskeleton technology. Her project caught the attention of Professor Quasar, who had initially been skeptical of her abilities. "Your proposal is intriguing, student Zora." Professor Quasar's energy form pulsed as she spoke. "It demonstrates a unique approach to a problem we've been grappling with for centuries. Perhaps there is value in perspectives from less advanced species after all." While Zora's physical capabilities earned her recognition, she struggled in other areas. The advanced mathematics and theoretical physics courses pushed her to her limits. Many concepts seemed to come naturally to her alien classmates, while Zara spent long hours in the library, poring over holographic textbooks and simulations. It was during one of these late-night study sessions that Zara encountered Zix, a quantumite student whose body appeared to shift between solid, liquid, and gaseous states. Zix had always seemed aloof, even dismissive of Zora's presence in the academy. "Still here, Earth-dweller?" Zix's voice resonated with a hint of condescension. "I'm surprised you haven't given up and returned to your primitive world yet." Zara felt a flash of anger, but took a deep breath before responding. "I'm not giving up, Zix. I may not grasp everything as quickly as you do, but humans are persistent. We don't back down from challenges." Zix's form shimmered, perhaps in amusement or surprise. Persistence without comprehension is futile. Your species is millennia behind in understanding the fundamental nature of reality. Maybe, Zora conceded, but sometimes a fresh perspective can lead to breakthroughs. We may see things differently, but that doesn't make our viewpoint less valuable. Their conversation was interrupted by an announcement over the Academy's communication system. Attention all students and faculty. Please report to the Grand Auditorium immediately for an emergency assembly. Exchanging puzzled looks, Zara and Zix made their way to the auditorium. The vast chamber was soon filled with beings of all descriptions, a living tapestry of galactic diversity. The air buzzed with nervous energy and speculation. Headmaster Zephyrus materialized on the stage, his gaseous form roiling with what seemed to be agitation. Esteemed members of the Galactic Academy, we face an unprecedented crisis. Our long-range sensors have detected a quantum anomaly of immense proportions approaching our sector of space. Holographic displays sprang to life, showing a swirling vortex of energy that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the audience. This anomaly, the headmaster continued, is causing severe disruptions in the fabric of space-time. If left unchecked, it could lead to the collapse of entire star systems. We are mobilizing all our resources to study and contain this threat. Zara felt a chill run down her spine. The enormity of the situation was overwhelming. Here she was, millions of light years from Earth, facing a crisis that threatened not just her new home, but potentially countless worlds. All regular classes are suspended, Headmaster Zephyrus announced. Students will be assigned to research teams based on their areas of expertise. Your instructors will provide further details. Remember, the combined knowledge of the galaxy's brightest minds resides within these walls. Together, we must find a solution. As the assembly dispersed, Zara found herself swept up in a tide of activity. Students and faculty rushed to their assigned stations, the atmosphere charged with a mix of fear and determination. Professor Quasar approached Zora, her energy form flickering rapidly. Student Zora, you'll be joining the Anomaly Behavior Analysis team. Your unique perspective may prove valuable. Zara nodded, pushing aside her doubts. I'll do my best, Professor. Over the next few days, Zora worked tirelessly with her team, analyzing data streams and running simulations. The anomaly defied conventional understanding, its behavior erratic and unpredictable. Zara found herself drawing upon everything she had learned, both at the Academy and from her life on Earth. During a particularly frustrating session, as the team argued over conflicting data interpretations, Zara had an epiphany. Wait, she interrupted, her mind racing. What if we're looking at this all wrong? Instead of trying to predict the anomaly's behavior using standard models, what if we treat it like a living system? Her alien teammates stared at her in confusion. Zora pressed on, her excitement growing. On Earth, we have complex systems like weather patterns or ecosystem dynamics that can seem chaotic, but actually follow underlying principles. What if this anomaly is similar? Professor Quasar's energy form pulsed rapidly, a sign Zora had come to recognize as intense interest. Elaborate, Student Zora. How would this perspective change our approach? Zara began sketching out her ideas, drawing parallels between the anomaly's behavior and complex Earth systems. She proposed a model that combined principles of chaos theory with quantum mechanics, suggesting that the anomaly might have a form of self-organization that could be influenced. As she spoke, Zara noticed Zix hovering nearby, their usually shifting form unnaturally still as they listened. For a moment, Zara thought she saw a flicker of respect in the Quantumite's ever-changing eyes. Professor Quasar's form brightened considerably. This could work. It's unorthodox, certainly, but it provides a new framework for understanding the anomaly's behavior. Well done, Student Zora. A surge of pride washed over Zora. For the first time since arriving at the Academy, she felt like she had made a truly significant contribution. Her human perspective, so often seen as primitive or limited, had provided a key insight that might help save countless lives. As the team rushed to implement Zora's ideas into their models and containment strategies, she caught sight of Naya Kalai across the room. Her roommate gave her a tentacle up in encouragement, her large eyes shining with what Zara now recognized as pride. In that moment, surrounded by beings from across the galaxy all working together to face an unprecedented threat, Zara felt a profound sense of belonging. She was no longer just a human struggling to keep up in an alien world. She was a valued member of a galactic community, bringing her unique strengths to bear on a challenge that threatened them all. As alarms blare and holographic displays flickered with new data, Zara squared her shoulders and dove back into her work. The crisis was far from over, but for the first time since it began, there was a glimmer of hope. And that hope had come from an unexpected source, a human girl who had dared to see the universe in a different way. The next few days were a blur of activity as the entire academy mobilized to implement Zora's theory. Her model, combining Earth-based complex systems analysis with advanced galactic science, provided a new framework for understanding and potentially controlling the quantum anomaly. Zora found herself at the center of a whirlwind of activity, explaining her ideas to teams of scientists and engineers from dozens of alien species. It was overwhelming, but she drew strength from the support of her friends and the growing respect of her peers. Even Zix, the once dismissive quantumite, approached her during a rare quiet moment. "Your theory. It's unorthodox, but intriguing," they admitted, their forms shimmering with what Zara had learned to interpret as reluctant admiration. "Perhaps there is value in your species' primitive viewpoint after all." Coming from Zix, this was high praise indeed. Zara smiled, feeling a mix of pride and humility. "Thanks, Zix. I think we all have something to learn from each other." As the Academy raced against time to develop a solution, Zara found herself pushing her limits in ways she never thought possible. She worked on complex calculations, assisted in the construction of experimental devices, and even used her physical endurance to help maintain equipment in high-gravity areas of the station. Through it all, the image of Earth, beautiful, fragile, and now potentially in grave danger, remained at the forefront of her mind. Zara was determined to do whatever it took to protect her home and prove that humanity had something valuable to offer the galactic community. As days stretched into weeks, progress was made in fits and starts. There were breakthroughs and setbacks, moments of elation and despair. The quantum anomaly continued to grow, its effects becoming more pronounced and unpredictable. Reports came in of strange phenomena occurring on planets across the galaxy, time distortions, spontaneous matter transmutation, and even isolated cases of beings seemingly phasing in and out of reality. The pressure mounted, and Zara felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. She knew her theory was just the beginning. Implementing a practical solution was proving to be far more challenging than anyone had anticipated. One evening, exhausted from another marathon work session, Zara retreated to her favorite observation deck. As she gazed out at the star-studded expanse, a familiar voice spoke from behind her. "You've come a long way from that confused Earthling who first arrived at the Academy," Professor Xon said, his tentacles rippling in a gesture Zara now recognized as pride. Zara turned, offering a tired smile to her mentor. "I still feel confused most of the time," she admitted. "There's so much at stake, and we're venturing into completely uncharted territory." Xon moved to stand beside her, his compound eyes reflecting the starlight. "That, my dear Zara, is the very essence of scientific discovery. We stand at the precipice of the unknown, armed only with our intellect, our determination, and our willingness to collaborate across the boundaries of species and cultures." He placed a tentacle gently on her shoulder. "You've sparked something remarkable here. Your theory has united some of the finest minds in the galaxy towards a common goal. Whatever the outcome, you should be proud of that achievement." Zara nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. "Thank you, Professor. I just hope it's enough. We're running out of time." As if to underscore her words, an alarm began to blare throughout the station. Red lights flashed, and a computerized voice echoed through the corridors. Alert! Major quantum fluctuation detected. All personnel report to emergency stations immediately. Zara and Son exchanged a look of concern before rushing from the observation deck. The next phase of their desperate race against time had begun, and the fate of worlds hung in the balance. As Zara and Professor Xon raced through the corridors of the Academy, the station trembled with an unsettling vibration. Scientists and students of various species hurried past them, their faces etched with a mixture of fear and determination. They burst into the main control room, which was a hive of frantic activity. Holographic displays flickered with streams of data, and the air was filled with a cacophony of alien languages as experts shouted updates and instructions. Dr. Lyra, the head of the Academy's Quantum Sciences Division, spotted them and waved them over. Her luminous skin pulsed with agitation as she spoke. The anomaly has suddenly expanded by 17%. We're detecting massive energy spikes throughout the affected region. Zara's mind raced as she absorbed the information on the nearest display. These readings, they're unlike anything we've seen before. It's as if the very fabric of space-time is starting to unravel. Zon's tentacles writhed in agitation. If this continues, we could be looking at a cascading effect that could tear apart entire star systems. A deep, resonant voice cut through the chaos. Then we must act now, ready or not. Zara turned to see Admiral Krax, the imposing leader of the Galactic Security Council, striding into the room. His exoskeleton gleamed under the harsh lights, and his multifaceted eyes surveyed the scene with military precision. Professor Xon, Dr. Zora, he acknowledged them with a curt nod. Your team's prototype, is it operational? Zara hesitated, glancing at Son. They had been working on a device based on her theories, designed to stabilize the quantum fluctuations, but it was far from complete. Admiral, she began carefully, we've made significant progress, but there are still many unknowns. We haven't had time to run proper simulations or... Time is a luxury we no longer possess, Krax interrupted, his voice brooking no argument. We must deploy the device immediately, or risk losing everything. The weight of the moment pressed down on Zara. She knew the dangers of using untested technology, especially on this scale. But as she looked around the room at the worried faces of beings from across the galaxy, she realized they had no choice. Taking a deep breath, she straightened her shoulders and met the Admiral's gaze. Understood, sir. We'll need to make some final adjustments, but we can have the device ready for deployment within the hour. Krax nodded approvingly. Good. I'll have my best pilots standing by to transport it to the anomaly's epicenter. As the Admiral turned to coordinate with his staff, Son pulled Zara aside. Are you certain about this? He asked, his voice low. The risks are enormous. Zara managed a small, determined smile. No, I'm not certain at all. But sometimes you have to take a leap of faith. Isn't that what you've been teaching me all along? Son's eyes crinkled in what Zora had come to recognize as his species' equivalent of a proud smile. Indeed it is. Well then, let's get to work. We have a universe to save. As they hurried towards the lab, Zora's mind whirled with calculations and possibilities. She knew that the next few hours would determine not just her fate, but potentially the fate of countless worlds across the galaxy. The pressure was immense, but for the first time since this crisis began, she felt a glimmer of hope. Whatever happened next, Zara was ready to face it head-on, armed with the knowledge she'd gained and supported by the diverse beings she now called friends and colleagues. The true test of her theories, and of humanity's place in the galactic community, was about to begin. The next hour passed in a blur of frenetic activity. Zara, Xon, and their team worked with laser-focused precision, making final adjustments to the quantum stabilization device. The prototype was a marvel of engineering, combining technologies from a dozen different species into a sleek, pulsing sphere about the size of a beach ball. As they worked, Zora couldn't help but marvel at the sight before her. Beings that would have been considered fantastical on Earth just months ago were now her colleagues, each contributing their unique expertise to this crucial endeavor. There was Glix, a gelatinous entity whose malleable form allowed them to manipulate the device's intricate internal components with unparalleled precision. Nearby, Vreen, an insectoid scientist with multiple limbs, coordinated the integration of various systems with astonishing efficiency. Just as they were making the final calibrations, a violent tremor shook the station. Alarms blared once again, and Dr. Lyra's voice came through the comm system, tight with urgency. The anomaly's growth rate has doubled. We're detecting quantum instabilities throughout the nearby sectors. Admiral Krax's voice followed immediately. We're out of time. Is the device ready? Zara exchanged a quick glance with Zahn, who gave a slight nod. She took a deep breath and responded, "As ready as it can be, Admiral. We're bringing it to the launch bay now." As they rushed through the corridors with their precious cargo, Zora's mind raced with a mixture of scientific calculations and very human fears. What if it didn't work? What if it made things worse? The fate of countless worlds could hinge on this moment. They arrived at the launch bay to find it a hive of activity. A sleek, arrow-shaped vessel stood ready, its hull gleaming with an iridescent material Zora didn't recognize. A team of pilots, their bodies adapted for the extreme conditions of deep space, were making final preparations. As they carefully loaded the device onto the ship, Admiral Krax approached Zora, his normally imposing demeanor seemed tempered by the gravity of the situation. "Dr. Zora, I must commend you and your team for your efforts. Regardless of the outcome, know that you have exemplified the highest ideals of galactic cooperation." Zara nodded, touched by the unexpected praise. "Thank you, Admiral. But our work isn't done yet." Krax's exoskeleton shifted, and what Zora had learned was a sign of agreement. "Indeed, which is why I'm authorizing you to accompany the device to the anomaly site." Zara's eyes widened in surprise. "Me? But I'm not trained for spaceflight, let alone a mission like this." "True," Krax conceded, "but no one understands this device and the theories behind it better than you. If adjustments need to be made on-site, you're our best hope." Before Zora could respond, San interjected, his tentacles waving with agitation. "Admiral, with all due respect, the dangers are immense. Zara is not equipped for—" "I'll do it," Zara interrupted, her voice firm despite the fear churning in her stomach. She turned to her mentor, seeing the concern in his compound eyes. "Professor, you've taught me that true scientific progress often requires personal risk. This is my theory, my device. I need to see this through." San's tentacles drooped in resignation, but there was pride in his voice as he spoke. "Very well, but promise me you'll return safely. The Academy needs bright minds like yours for the challenges that lie ahead." As Zara prepared to board the ship, donning a specially designed suit that would protect her from the rigors of space and the quantum fluctuations, she felt a strange calm settle over her. Whatever happened next, she knew she was part of something greater than herself, a united effort to safeguard the very fabric of the universe. The ship's engines hummed to life as Zara strapped herself in beside the alien pilot. Through the view screen, she could see the vast expanse of space, beautiful and terrifying in its immensity. At the edge of her vision, a faint, shimmering distortion marked the location of the growing anomaly. As the launch countdown began, Zara closed her eyes briefly, thinking of Earth, of her family, of all she had left behind, and all she had gained. When she opened them again, determination blazed in her gaze. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she was ready to face them. The countdown reached 0, and with a surge of power, the ship rocketed out of the launch bay and into the star-studded void, carrying with it the hopes of countless worlds and the culmination of Zora's incredible journey. The ship accelerated away from the Academy. Zara felt a mix of exhilaration and terror. The alien pilot, a being named Krell with iridescent scales and multiple eyes, expertly navigated through the shimmering distortions that were becoming more pronounced as they approached the anomaly. Entering the affected zone in approximately 3 minutes, Krell announced, their voice a melodious trill. Dr. Zara, you may want to begin final preparations on the device. Zara nodded, unstrapping herself from her seat with slightly trembling hands. As she moved towards the quantum stabilization device, the ship suddenly lurched, nearly throwing her off balance. Apologies, Krell called out. The quantum fluctuations are intensifying. Navigation is becoming problematic. Zara steadied herself against a bulkhead, her eyes widening as she looked out the view screen. The space around them seemed to be folding and unfolding, colors shifting in impossible ways. It was as if reality itself was coming apart at the seams. Pushing aside her awe and fear, Zara focused on the task at hand. She began the activation sequence for the device, her fingers dancing over its control panel. As it hummed to life, pulsing with an ethereal energy, Zara couldn't help but marvel at what they had created, a fusion of Earth's complex systems theory and the most advanced galactic science. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. Krell's voice was tense as they reported, massive energy spike detected. The anomaly is expanding exponentially. Before Zora could respond, a blinding light filled the cabin. She felt a sensation of weightlessness, as if she was being pulled in all directions at once. Colors swirled around her, and for a moment, she thought she could see glimpses of other realities, worlds both familiar and utterly alien. Then, as quickly as it began, the sensation passed. Zara found herself sprawled on the floor of the ship, her ears ringing and her vision blurry. "Krell," she called out, struggling to her feet. "Are you all right?" There was no response from the pilot. As Zara's vision cleared, she gasped in shock. The interior of the ship had changed. It seemed older, worn, as if years had passed in an instant. And Krell was nowhere to be seen. Panic threatened to overwhelm her, but Zara forced herself to focus. She checked the quantum stabilization device. Miraculously, it appeared undamaged and still functional. But as she looked out the view screen, her heart sank. As Zora's gaze fell upon the view screen, her eyes widened in disbelief. The familiar starscape she had expected was gone, replaced by an alien vista that sent chills down her spine. Instead of the inky blackness of space dotted with distant stars, a swirling maelstrom of colors filled the view. Ribbons of energy and hues she had never seen before danced across the screen, twisting and writhing in impossible patterns. In the distance, what appeared to be fragments of shattered planets drifted by, their surfaces reflecting the eerie light of this strange realm. Zara's scientific mind raced, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. Had the quantum stabilization device malfunctioned? Were they trapped between dimensions, or had they somehow been thrown into a completely different universe altogether? She forced herself to take a deep breath, steadying her nerves. Panicking wouldn't help her situation. She needed to assess the ship's systems, try to determine their location, and most importantly, find out what had happened to Krell. Moving to the control panel, Zara began running diagnostics on the ship's systems. As she worked, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Every so often, she thought she caught glimpses of shadowy shapes moving just beyond the view screen, but when she looked directly at them, they vanished. The ship's computer came to life with a series of beeps and whirs, its voice sounding strangely distorted as it spoke. Warning: dimensional anomaly detected. Current location: unknown. Temporal displacement. Calculating. Zara's heart raced as she waited for the computer to finish its analysis. Whatever had happened during that flash of light, it was clear that their situation was far more dire than she had initially feared. As the seconds ticked by, she found herself wondering, was this the price of pushing the boundaries of science too far? And more importantly, how would they ever find their way back home? The computer's distorted voice crackled again, interrupting Zura's thoughts. Temporal displacement calculation complete. Estimated time shift: 147 years, 3 months, 12 days forward. Zara felt her knees weaken, and she gripped the console to steady herself. Nearly a century and a half into the future. It seemed impossible, yet the evidence was all around her. The aged interior of the ship, the alien realm outside, and Krell's mysterious disappearance. Pushing aside her shock, Zara forced herself to focus on the immediate problems. She needed to find a way to navigate this strange dimension and, if possible, reverse whatever had happened to them. As she scanned through the ship's systems, she noticed something odd. The quantum stabilization device was still functioning, but its energy signature had changed. It was as if it had adapted to this new realm, resonating with the swirling energies outside. An idea began to form in Zora's mind. If the device had somehow protected them during the transition, could it be the key to finding their way back? Just then, a loud creaking sound echoed through the ship, followed by a series of rapid beeps from the computer. Warning: hull integrity compromised. Unknown energy signatures detected attempting to penetrate ship's shields. Zara's eyes darted to the view screen. The shadowy shapes she had glimpsed earlier were now clearly visible, amorphous, dark entities that seemed to be made of the very fabric of this strange dimension. They pressed against the ship's energy barrier, probing for weaknesses. With growing alarm, Zara realized she was facing two immediate threats: the deteriorating condition of the ship and these mysterious entities trying to get in. She had to act fast, but her options were limited in this unfamiliar territory. As she frantically worked at the controls, trying to reinforce the shields, a faint, familiar voice seemed to echo from somewhere deep within the ship. "Zara, help." It was Krell's voice, barely audible and seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. But how was that possible? And more importantly, how could Zara help him when she could barely help herself? With the ship groaning under the pressure of